Good afternoon and welcome. I greet you with the greeting of St. Francis. May the Lord give you peace. Amen. So the readings at Mass recently have been so good. We're going over creation. We've been pondering the story of Adam and Eve and the original sin, the fall. And this is kind of like the second chapter of that, Cain and Abel. And there are a lot of details in the Adam and Eve story that kind of reappear in the Cain and Abel story. And it's almost like an extension of this kind of undoing of our humanity through sin. You have two people, but now it's brothers. You have one who gets angry, kills the other, Cain, and he gets mad at God, and the Lord warns him about the presence of the devil. And so, yeah, there's all these details that are very similar, kind of an unfolding of that original story. And it's complemented so well by this story of the gospel today where Jesus encounters the Pharisees. And in this account, the Pharisees have such a hardness of heart, and they're asking Jesus for a sign. Jesus, in this case, refuses to give the sign. And you may ask the question, well, why? How might we understand the dynamics of what was happening there? And so in praying over that, I had a couple of ideas I'd like to share with us today. In both the Adam and Eve story and in the Cain and Abel story, there is the presence of Satan, of an evil spirit, kind of behind the scenes, scheming and manipulating and kind of influencing sin into the world. And I think there's something similar here. These Pharisees asking Jesus for a sign, not because they actually wanted one or that they would be even willing to ponder the sign if he gave it or to follow where the sign pointed. They would not, which is why Jesus refused to play their game. But there's something similar here to the account of the temptation of Christ in the desert, where the devil is trying to somehow get Jesus to use his divine powers like a magic trick, right? Give us a sign. Turn these stones into bread, like throw yourself off of this temple and God's angels. Well, there's a similar vibe with this Pharisaical request for a sign. You kind of discern the presence of the evil one, trying to come at Jesus through the Pharisees and to try to trick him into, doing something kind of, and in this way, kind of controlling and manipulating Jesus. This is what they're trying to do. And yet Jesus refuses to engage with that or to play the game, And so he'll continue on his path of docility and communion with the Father, this trusting in God, which is the thing that Adam and Eve failed to do. It's the thing that Cain failed to do, this, kind of communion with the Father. And so in this way, the Lord gives us a great lesson in our own discernment, these situations that any one of us may face, to be able to discern when maybe there is the presence of the evil one in different circumstances or different voices, trying to trip us up or trick us into following into a path of sin, especially a path that somehow disregards God the Father or disregards trust in the Lord. But Jesus gives us the remedy by resisting the temptation and by refusing to let go of that communion, that trust with God, And I'll never tire of telling people that, the Lord doesn't want us to go through this life in the illusion of self-sufficiency, that we can do everything on our own, which is very kind of in the American culture. So I think all of us here in America, we need to be purified of this somehow, but rather that we live a life, in dependency upon God for everything. And that's not a put down in any way because of his great love for us. He's ready and willing to supply every grace we need. He gives us this day our daily bread. And so on this day, we thank the Lord for this great lesson that in all things we would resist the voice of temptation and always move in the direction of trusting in the Father. Amen.